If you have ever been manipulated, humiliated, cheated on, or completely devastated by a narcissist, sociopath, or someone with borderline traits, this video is going to show you how to never let that happen again. And I'm going to do this by breaking down the Wizard Liz cheating scandal, because it's a textbook example of how these personality types trap you and traumatize you. And as a former forensic personality profiler that did psych assessments on criminals, and now as a therapist and coach that specializes in neurological reprogramming so you could rewire your brain to have whatever you want in life, I saw this coming from a mile away. Mama knew the whole time. I was actually going to make a video about this a while ago before the cheating scandal, but I didn't want to come off like a hater. But anyway, I'll show you all the manipulation tactics Landon used to manipulate her and literally get her addicted to him, as well as why she ignored every red flag, and how to make sure this never happens to you, because this isn't about all men being pieces of crap and cheaters like all these people on the internet are talking about. No, whether you're a man, woman, gay, or straight, this could happen to you. And I'm going to break down the psychology and even biochemistry of this situation for you. And I'm going to say some things that no one else is saying, because I don't want you to ever get played like this. Let's go. And real quick, if you don't know who the Wizard Liz is, she is a personality type on YouTube that gives manifestation and relationship advice. Yeah. Then she gets engaged to Landon, who seems to have a lot of borderline personality traits, which I will get into more in a minute. And they got engaged and apparently married very quickly. And while she's now 4 months pregnant, she finds out he was cheating just days before they did this video about their relationship, which has since been taken down, but just exuded a very disingenuous feeling. It was kind of creepy. And just like in his previous relationships, which are now getting exposed, he was probably cheating on Liz the whole time. Narcissists, borderlines, and sociopaths, also known as cluster B personalities in psychology, always cheat. They always have a backup supply that they're keeping warm. And I do think that Landon might even meant to get caught to embarrass her, because people with these personality types carry so much guilt and shame. They hate themselves so much and feel so horrible about themselves. They then create situations, typically with the people closest to them, where they can feel the pain that they are internally feeling. And when they offload their pain like this, it actually gives them relief. Also, everyone is taking this angle like even a high-value woman could miss the red flags. No. This happened because Liz, who is an unhealed woman, chose to ignore the red flags. There is a huge difference. And I'm sorry, but a true high-value woman constantly works on herself and really wouldn't let this happen. Like I said, I'm going to say some things that no one else is saying. I also think there's some influencer megalomania going on here. Like, you start to think you're untouchable because you're spouting out all this advice and knowledge that you haven't incorporated into your own life. And this is the first and biggest error that Liz made, because there is a huge difference between knowing something and incorporating it into your life and literally integrating it into your nervous system and psyche. So typically when I work with clients, they're at that point of frustration because they know, they're like, I know better. I know I shouldn't have done this. I know I shouldn't have ignored the red flags, but something in their subconscious and unconscious mind kept attracting a certain thing or repeating a certain pattern. You can't just know something. So when I work with people, I'm working with the knowledge, which is good. We have to have the knowledge. And then I'm working on a nervous system and even spiritual level. And like my favorite psychologist, Carl Jung, taught us, everything is healed on the spiritual level. Things are created and also healed on the spiritual level. And again, this isn't about all men cheating and being shit. No. But if you believe that, that is certainly the reality that you will create. But no. And any manifestation coach, including Liz, will tell you that your reality is a reflection of what you truly believe, which is true, and it's now been proven scientifically. This is why you'll see people with a specific trauma rooting from childhood continue to repeat it in adulthood until they break that neural pathway and create a new one, which Liz hasn't done yet. She has a lot of trauma around her father, which she talks about. And the situation with Landon literally recreated that trauma. She clearly still has some subconscious and unconscious beliefs about men that are based on her childhood trauma around her father. She's very aware of them, but she has not healed them. And it's very clear to me that she still subconsciously and unconsciously believes that men are dangerous and will eventually let you down. There is a huge difference between logically understanding something, such as being a high-value woman and having standards, and actually integrating that into your psyche and mental and emotional and spiritual and energetic being. Because if that hasn't healed, you will continue to attract that trauma. Like attracts like. Again, this has been proven in science. So someone with unhealed daddy issues, such as Liz, is going to attract someone that will repeat that trauma. And Landon most likely has mommy issues. A lot of men that have sociopathic, narcissistic, or borderline traits hate women. They hate the power that they have, and he probably perceived Liz as a powerful woman and wanted to take her down and humble her. That is literally what these personality types want to do. And this is definitely happening on the subconscious and unconscious levels, but a lot of these personality types consciously know that they want to take down their supply and get pleasure out of it, especially with sociopaths. Sociopaths get a lot of pleasure out of other people's pain. And clearly, Liz made a career of giving people advice she hasn't been taking. And her whole tough girl, independent woman thing is another red flag. She actually comes off very masculine. Despite having the lips and the boobs and everything, her energy is very masculine and defensive. And when you are so guarded and hypervigilant because you have unresolved trauma, you will attract people that can prey on that. This is the same reason Landon attracted and targeted his ex-girlfriend Abby. But unlike Liz, Abby has so much awareness, and it sounds like she's done a lot of deep healing around her trauma. She did a video about this whole situation that when she met Landon, she was very guarded because she had gone through some serious trauma like a month before. So when you are in a hypervigilant state, you are very susceptible to these type of people. Plus with Liz, and I've been here too, I've been here before, where you have this ego of thinking like, oh, I know everything, I have everything together, I'm untouchable. That makes you a bigger target. Because when you do get played or manipulated, you don't want to humble yourself to admit it. And I also think it's the reason that she's probably going to eventually take Landon back, because she can't even admit to herself that she allowed herself to be manipulated and humiliated like this. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but I don't think Liz is a victim, and I do think that she manifested this. Like she says, we manifest everything in our life. And her dominant belief is a reflection of what's going on in her relationship with Landon. And apparently she said she had a lot of fear around being pregnant and abandoned by a guy. Well, that's what you've been giving a lot of energy to. So that's what you've created in your life. And I guess also Landon asked her to give up her apartment, which is a form of freedom. These personality types never want you to have your own autonomy. And they got married really quickly. All I'm saying is Landon didn't hold a gun to her head. So he didn't make her do anything. But yes, she did get manipulated. But how fast everything happened was a clear sign of love bombing. Also, when a woman gives up her apartment, gets pregnant by a man, and gets married really quickly, that created a huge power shift. And also another thing about the power shifting in a malignant way, men are designed, they are wired to want to work for things, to value what they earn, to value high effort things, to value things that they had to put a lot of effort in to get. So it looked like Landon really started to devalue her when she, one, fell for the love bombing, then got engaged really quickly, agreed to get married really quickly, and then got pregnant quickly. Also, there was no wedding. I'm sure she would have posted pictures if there was an actual wedding. So he didn't have to work for that or wait for that either. Also, Liz, like most women, probably wanted a nice wedding, but she showed him that she was okay with settling for less. And she also showed him through her actions and what she was willing to settle for, like, oh yeah, you can just have me for basically doing nothing. I'll give up my apartment and have your baby with this minimal effort and commitment. Even a grounded, healthy man isn't going to think highly of a woman who does that. And narcissists use children to trap you. I hate to say that. I know it's horrible, but they use children to trap you. It's not about being in love. It's about, I own you, and now we're forever connected. I will always be in your life. At least with Landon's ex, Abby, she knew and was willing to admit that she had childhood trauma and codependency and a disorganized attachment style. Liz has these traits as well, but she doesn't seem willing to admit or acknowledge them at all, from what I can see. Another red flag, in the interview they did days before the cheating scandal was exposed, they were talking about the relationship and she was saying, oh, he's so possessive and controlling, and he agreed. Oh, and he has mood swings, and he agreed. Red flag. And then he says, yeah, this is the first real relationship you have. And she agreed with that. So ma'am, let me get this straight. This whole time you've been giving relationship advice and you've never been in a real relationship? And this is your first real relationship? This relationship has all the makings of narcissistic, borderline, or sociopathic abuse. The love bombing, moving very fast, announcing their engagement in September, then quickly getting married, then she's pregnant. What is the rush for? I think it really displays an anxious attachment on Liz's side. Now Landon threatening to unlive himself, that is a huge indication of borderline manipulation. Sorry, but any woman, any person who has healed from or is actively really working on their trauma and codependency issues and anxious attachment style would never rush and get married like this, especially when there's so much evidence in front of her face that she chose to ignore, including all of the warnings that Abby was trying to give her that Liz is somehow denying, even though Abby showed all of the evidence, because Liz is more invested in not looking stupid or more stupid. Let's get more into Liz's psychology. So this woman has a desire to be loved so badly. Even though she tries to come off as tough and independent, I don't need a man. Always be aware of people like that. She would have never fallen for Landon saying, "Oh, I knew when I met you I was going to marry you." That is huge manipulation and love bombing. Also, another thing no one is talking about is Landon cyber stalking her. He did this to Abby. He knew that she was in some airport and did this to Liz. Apparently, he's a tech guy. So he was sending Liz links to books to check out. And those links probably got embedded in her phone and gave him the ability to cyber stalk her and let him know when she was buying plane tickets and exactly where she was going to be. It wasn't this big kismet thing. He was stalking her and probably still is. I know, I've been cyber stalked before. And yes, it can be done by someone sending you a link. Also, in a lot of her videos where she talks about relationships or manifesting, she's like, "Oh, I'm not going to sell you a course. I'm going to tell you everything in this video." Good, babe. You should not be selling a course. I did not write a course. I have 3 courses until I had a certain level of mastery, high level of mastery on the topic. So, in my opinion, she shouldn't be creating courses on manifestation or relationships. She just has a lot to learn. Again, I've been there. But this whole masculine tough veneer, like I know everything, is a huge red flag, a huge indicator that you can be easily manipulated. Also, there's a lot of criticism about Liz defending Landon and people saying, "Oh, the pregnancy hormones must be making her crazy." On a biological level, and I don't know why this isn't talked about more, but when women have sex with a man, we just have sex with a man, our oxytocin goes up, our serotonin, all these things go up, and we are biologically designed to ignore red flags because our limbic system literally thinks that every time that we have sex, we could potentially get pregnant. So the brain ignores the red flags, so we stay with this man who can ostensibly protect us through a pregnancy. So yes, her brain is flooded with hormones that are making her ignore or reduce red flags, but that happens even when women have sex. And I think we need to be more aware of that. Anyway, like I was saying, it's so obvious that Liz has this deep desire to be loved because the love bombing and all this manipulation wouldn't have worked, even though the whole time she had other women telling her that Landon was cheating. And I know that she probably felt it in her gut. That video they did together about their relationship, you can just tell there's tension, there's no chemistry, and you could tell there's already like negative tension between them. She knew. And I don't want to be harsh, I really do wish her the best. And speaking of Landon's love bombing, and we're going to get more into Landon's psychology, I'm always going to be straight up with you, and this might sound a little harsh, but when they're love bombing you and telling you how special you are and you're the only person that and I've never felt this way, you're the best of the best in every way, I need to tell you, babe, I mean this in the kindest, most factual way of what's going on in a narcissist, sociopath, or borderline person's mind, but you're not special. They're preying on your insecurities because at this point they've learned their story. They're mirroring you and your personality so you feel like, oh my God, we're so much alike. But they've done this to everyone. Just like Landon did with Liz. He was trying to use all her spiritual language like, oh my God, the universe brought us together. And apparently he never used that kind of language before he met her. They study you so they can make you feel amazing and literally get you addicted to them. This becomes like a drug because you're really high on all of this dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin. And then in the devaluation phase, it all goes away and you're looking for that hit. You want more of it. And at first you're like, oh, that was weird. And then it gets deeper and deeper in terms of the disrespect and humiliation. But you keep coming back to get that hit, to get that validation, to know, no, I really was that special. I am different. That's a big one that my clients come in. I want to be different than the others. I want to know this is real. I want to know I didn't get played that hard. I want to show them why they're wrong. I want to show them why I deserve love and respect. You used to think that of me, right? You used to tell me all those things. It can't be true, you didn't mean those things. And just like Landon's ex-girlfriend said, yes, he used all of those tactics on me too. He learned my personality and started to talk like me, so we had this false bond going on. So I know it's harsh to say, but please just know it's a tactic. And that is not what real love looks like. Real love is consistent and stable and honest. Also, as a woman or the feminine energy in a relationship, when you are healed enough to attract a healthy masculine man into your life, he will be a real provider and protector. A man that is securely in his masculine loves providing and protecting for women and children. They are loyal, they know how to regulate their emotions, they don't have dramatic mood swings that Landon admitted to having, which is another indication of borderline personality traits. Masculine men know how to control their sexual urges. They're not constantly cheating and texting and giving their energy and attention to other women because they're not constantly seeking validation and power and control through their sexuality because they're so insecure, or secretly gay, or insecure about being secretly gay. Also, another red flag on Landon's part, he accused his ex, Abby, of having borderline personality disorder because he's probably been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And I see a lot of borderline traits with Landon. Again, what's called splitting, which is showing up as cheating, telling different stories to different people, accusing someone else of being borderline. And also, borderlines threaten to unalive themselves in order to get the person that they just abused, that's finally standing up for themselves, to come back. It's so manipulative. These are defense mechanisms that people with unhealed trauma do. Not all men do this, not all women do this. Because between Landon and the Aubrey Marcus thing, a lot of people are saying that men don't know how to control their sexual impulses, but it's deeper than that. It's really not about men that don't know how to control their impulses. It's about healing what's underneath that addiction or compulsion. Because the addiction or compulsion is attempting to cover up a lot of insecurity and unhealed trauma. And also, it's not just about abstaining from a certain behavior or addiction. If you just abstain, then that addiction will be rerouted into some other thing. There's a lot of people that stop drinking and then become sex addicts or start gambling. So it's not just about abstaining from a behavior. And I've been there. I've talked about this with an ex of mine. He really drew me in because he was sober for 14 years and I thought he was following a program, but he was just abstaining from a certain behavior, and that addiction got rewired into something else. And it was so traumatizing in a way because I thought that he had done all the inner work underneath that, but he had not. So again, this loops back to resolving unhealed trauma. Otherwise, your relationships and your life will continue to be chaotic and very stressful. And this is why I literally never date anyone, or I'm not even friends with people that aren't continuously working on themselves and have a growth mindset. And if they say that they're working on themselves and have a growth mindset, like a lot of narcissists, borderlines, and sociopaths will say to you in order to lure you in, but then you start to see the red flags that they don't, gotta cut them off. And I highly suggest you do the same thing. And if you have been manipulated or traumatized by these people in the past, keep working on yourself. Keep watching videos and reading books. Work with a therapist. You can take one of my courses or work with me directly, but continue to pour into yourself because whatever you give energy expands. I always say that meeting someone that has these toxic traits could be one of the best things that ever happened to you. And I know that sounds crazy, but they can actually propel your evolution to a place that you wouldn't do on your own. Sometimes we have to go through something that's so hard to get to another level. And often it's a level even beyond what we could imagine. Every client I've worked with around these issues ends up being so grateful for that person. And I've had the same experience. I love who I am and I love my life because of those previous experiences. And I wish Liz the best, and I know that she'll get there eventually. All right, let me know if you have any other questions. I love you. I'm rooting for you. I want to see you win. And I'm always wishing you the best on your healing journey.